What's up, everybody? Wes, Dead Air Knipe here with always.
Typical Lydia.
You are listening to the Dead Air podcast, and today we are doing the 1985 vampire classic, Fright Night.
Good one. I like that hiss. That's a good hiss. Nice hiss. This is a huge favorite of mine. And this is, like we said previously, oh my God, how have we not done this? This has been a favorite movie of mine since birth? Question mark, something like that. I used to quote things from this film on the school ground in elementary school. I've watched it, rented it from the video store on VHS probably 20 goddamn times. I watched it nonstop. I thought about Evil Ed probably every day of my life in one form or another because he's just my little hero. And I watched it a couple times since I moved to Ottawa. I've probably not watched it in about 10 years. And it was just so enchanting to see how it's held up. And it's a comfort watch for me, for sure.
I'm not surprised at all that you really like this film, although just as a casual question, not to put you on the spot, but do you like this more than Lost Boys?
That's really tough. That's super tough because I think, of course, I came to Lost Boys when I was more of an age to want to run away to the carnival and meet the boys on the motorcycles and hang out on the carousel, where I approached this a little bit younger when things like catchphrases and Evil Ed didn't seem weird to me. So I'd have to say they're really on equal footing in a lot of ways. There's things about Lost Boys I like better, though.
There's something about Fright Night that exists in this 1980s suburbia that can seem like such a distinct time frame, but yet at the same time timeless. And I think the parts of it that hold up is that aspect where you can be young and your world exists within a row of just a few houses. And it is an event when somebody new moves to town, when that old house where you knew everyone inside of it is no longer there, and now somebody else is inside that place, and it drives kids crazy because we can see these houses every single day, but we don't really know the people who are living inside. That's the mystery. And it could be anything. It could be an old witch. It could be an eccentric millionaire. It could be a vampire.
Like my friend who watched horror movies with me as a youth, as a elementary school youth, they had a neighbor that had a little bungalow type house that looked like an old little cottage, and it was like surrounded by trees. So it was super dark and shady in there all the time. And we were convinced that they were an albino brother and sister set up and that they had like witchy powers or like something. And we always tried to like see in their windows. What the fuck is wrong with us? They were just like regular neighbors. I don't think they were brother and sister. They certainly weren't albino and they weren't witches. So I don't know where we concocted that, but I think it had to do with the look of the house, right? This little cottagey place. It's kind of weather beaten, under surrounded by trees, super dark. Look at this house across the road from Charley. But it looks like the Marston Mansion. It's like a scary haunted house. And it's even remarked on in a meta fashion later on in the film. So like I kind of don't blame him, although he's supposed to be what, 16, 17, 18, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so I would say the 16 seems about right.
He passes up his hot date, his girlfriend of a year, Amy, to stare at this house. It's like I can't envision any boy of that age with a girl in his room paying attention to the house next door. Littler kids, like we were peering in windows at like 8 years old, yes. But that's why I have some confusion about Charlie's age sometimes.
I've told this story before, but I had a next door neighbor that was not my direct next door neighbor, but the one house down. And she had antlers near the top of a roof. It was a 2-story house, and there was a flat part just on the second floor, and she had deer antlers on there, which of course made this old woman evil. And my siblings told me that she was a scary witch. And I always remember I would run past that house, and I wouldn't dare look at it. I might try to catch a glimpse of the antlers hanging on the wall, but I dare not look at it too directly. And I have such a vivid memory of going to that house on Halloween and encountering her, and she's just a sweet old lady giving out UNICEF. She was doing UNICEF. So
cute.
yeah, so that was fun. I think that kids' imaginations play into this. But in terms of Charlie's age, not only does he reject a girl who literally says the lines, "I'm ready," as she has removed her top, but this is seconds after getting into an argument where he raises his voice about how the fact that they're not having sex with each other. And then she says that she's scared. And then we'll get into this, because I agree there's some interesting choices about the Charley character that he sometimes acts like he's 9 years old to me.
Then again, so does Evil Ed, my hero. When did you first come to this particular film? I was astounded that Chris had only caught it on TV or something here and there. So it wasn't like, I don't know. I believe that everyone has discovered it like I did, that they rented it from the video store over and over and over again because it's so goddamn good. So how did you come across it?
It was a rental, although I did see it more on television more than anything else. This was a movie that I came to a little bit later in life, although I'm not surprised that you would have wanted to rent it and then rented it multiple times. The poster art, then the VHS cover art for this, is some of the most iconic in all of horror, particularly from this decade. That is the type of image, the mist and the house and the scary vampire face over top of it. The title, it's a great title. And so it draws you in. But I would have been a little bit older when we rented this. And then, yeah, I would catch it on Halloween time. I felt like it was on TV a lot, like basic cable type stuff. And then when I was building up my horror collection, I bought the DVD, watched it when I got the DVD, and then I didn't watch it for years and years and years. It's been well over 10 years since I've seen this movie. Maybe 15, 16 years since I last watched, like whenever the DVD came out is whenever I got it. So much like you, I felt really excited to revisit this film after so many years, and with a new appreciation about where its place is in horror history, because this really does occupy a space in which vampires were beginning to get recontextualized for modern audiences. And this film is very preoccupied with traditional Gothic vampire storytelling, in the sense that we are looking back on it with a little bit of derision. It's a little corny, it's a little silly, these old Hammer vampire films, aren't they? And to the point in which it occupies the same space of what Romero was doing with Martin, because of the old sequences in which you have in that film, which are very much like Hammer horror. And then this film brings vampires to the modern era. They're no longer in castles, and there's no mistaking what they are, because it's not a Martin situation where, is he crazy? Is he a vampire? Who knows? It's a vampire named Jerry. And it's so silly to me, but it's so good at the same time. Yeah. And instead of going to a far off place, you're not going to Transylvania. you're not going to the Carpathian Mountains to visit this vampire. He's coming to your neighborhood.
I'm not sure what town they're supposed to be living in. Do they say?
No, they don't say in the movie. I think it's like any town USA, although I'm sure one of our dear listeners was like, "You're out of your mind. It's in Poughkeepsie," or whatever.
It looks very much, where it takes place. It could be the same street as Laurie Strode. It looks like a very suburban, quiet. It's the burbs, and it's got Victorian houses, so it's older. But then they have this nightclub downtown, which is walking distance because they all fucking walk. And it seems to be a New York alleyway down there around the back. So there's a weird spatial idea. Like, it's obviously on a soundstage. Just watching it, you can tell
Hmm.
it's all just sets, right? All of it. There's nothing on location, which doesn't help. It does not help me place where it is in any town USA, right? So it was kind of tough that way, but I like that sort of dream idea, that dream sequence. And we start sort of in a dream within a dream because when we begin, we're listening to an old film playing on TV. And then we pan into Charlie's room. All the shots across the road seem very rear window. So it helps with all this like dream sequence stuff. Like there are mirrors involved, but they don't go like through the looking glass like a lot of films do quite literally to put us into a dream sequence. Although there are a few scenes where Charlie wakes up where it could be all a dream, but yeah, we'll get into that. I absolutely love this film, and I keep thinking now of your question, do I like this or Lost Boys better? And I think this, it's just Noodles, Michael. I still think of from time to time, but I'm not kidding when almost every day I think about Evil Ed.
I really like the way that you described the mutating environment. It's almost as if that the story morphs the environment to suit whatever the hell they're trying to come across. Because you're in Charlie's home and it looks very much like a typical suburban house. You're in Peter Vincent's place. Now it looks like Hammer horror. It looks like you're in some old European place. And then, yes, when Evil Ed is going down that alleyway, now you're in the Bronx, you're in Chicago, you're somewhere like with fog and steam, and everything is looking extremely tough and very urban. And then next thing you know, yes, you're in this mansion, this huge mansion that looks like it's in a completely different environment. Why would they build this one house? Even the exterior of the house doesn't even look like it would fit in the neighborhood.
I think they push this envelope too, where we are in Charlie's house, which looks like just any town USA, a little tiny craftsman home, and it's got the tasteful fucking wallpaper or whatever the hell, and it's lit appropriately, and it looks homey and sweet and nurturing. The mom is sweet and nurturing as well. But then later on, there's a scene later on where the house is lit differently and it's fucking menacing. It's totally menacing, just what they're doing with lighting in the same home. So they continue to morph with this dream logic because, again, we are in a world where vampires exist, right?
Yeah, I think that term dream logic is very appropriate to describe what this movie is doing. Particularly, man, that dance club scene is so weird. But fuck all that, Lydia. What is this movie even about, anyways? We gotta let them know.
This movie is about, okay, you have to admit, if someone's living beside you and has all these traits, walks like a vampire, talks like a vampire, smells like a vampire, they're a vampire, and you admit that, you do need to drop everything and hire a vampire hunter. That's what you need to do. So it is about taking time out of your day take care of your important responsibilities, because even though this vampire poses no threat to you or anyone really directly around you, except maybe your mother, because she's hot to trot, you do need to say something if you see something.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think that the most jarring thing for me as an old school horror fan is this depiction of Peter Vincent's version of a Hammer horror film. Now, we are going to encounter Charlie and Amy kissing. They are smooching, not on the bed, but on like a display of pillows next to the bed while they're watching Fright Night. And what Fright Night is, it's a Svengoolie, it's an Elvira, it's one of those type things where there you have a host and you have a corny movie. The interesting thing is that this is a situation in which the horror host of Fright Night seems to just intro his own movies. Like he's like a Peter Cushing or a Vincent Price, where they did a bajillion
Or Roddy McDowell.
or Roddy McDowell.
Yeah, he kind of like could do this.
And so me as an old school horror fan watching this corny ass Hammer-esque vampire scene go on, I just think to myself, man, those Hammer horror movies were very self-serious. They weren't, no one was trilling their R's, and the dialogue was never this bad. And so my question to you, Lids, is this just what in 1985 people thought of those old Hammer movies? They just thought they were like this?
Absolutely. I still think they're like this. I don't think it's far off at all. I think that he has the transatlantic accent down pat, aside from the Britishness. He's very much an amalgamation of all of those Hammer horror stars. He's got a lot more Vincent Price, hence his name, probably. I mean, he's got himself in it. He he acts like Roddy McDowell would, right? Like, I really do enjoy this, and I did think of Hammer horror films like that. And if you watch something like Blood on Satan's Claw, it's not he's not far off with his depictions of a vampire hunter, right, and how they behaved. And I think that that parody moved into Coppola's Dracula as well, because Van Helsing there sort of embodies this, but in a much more serious as a heart attack form, where this is the I am also Sideshow Bob. I'm also a washed up actor who has been on television wasting my time spinning my wheels and stuck in a rut or whatever it is that makes him leave the hosting duties of Fright Night. So we have that really Hollywood, washed up Hollywood thing that may have infected all of our favorite Hammer horror actors from one time to another, let alone other actors in B films. And it's sort of like a convergence of what we think of the grand old guard of monster and horror film acting greats, and the B and lower versions of them. So maybe it is embodying a little bit of the uh, spaghetti western Italian versions of the Hammer horror greats.
I guess it's just because I still watch Hammer horror on a semi-regular basis. I do engage with that decade of gothic horror, and I feel like this is a caricature of a very bad version of that, but the ones that I'm watching don't sound like this. The characters don't act like this. And I'm not going to get too far into the weeds with this because it doesn't matter, but I was really more interested in the perspective of 1985, where a Hammer horror
Mm,
film would feel very dated. And it
yeah.
was considered quite dated, and audiences had moved on from this particular kind of horror film. They were already making fun of it in the 1960s with things like Fearless Vampire Hunters. And by the time we were in the 70s and we were in full blown auteur director, I mean, we were talking about the decade that brings you Rosemary's Baby, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist. And so people had moved on. And so for kids and young people, which I view Fright Night as geared towards, that would have been the MTV audience that would be engaging with this film in 1985. Hammer would seem like this, wouldn't it? That's all I think.
Absolutely. And adults at the time were more interested in what was coming to the theater, not what was available on television, because a lot of those films, Hammer films specifically, weren't on the racks. They might have been available on VHS, but they weren't on the racks, especially in small town Canada, right? So
I yeah,
those
I
films were what you caught on TV late at night if you were inclined, but there was probably something better to watch. I had seen them here and there on television, but it wasn't something that my parents sat down and wanted to make a point of watching. They were more interested in what Romero was doing or to watch Maximum Overdrive or whatever was the new hot thing, for sure.
Yeah, and I certainly think that if of all of the voracious appetites that people had for home video back in the 1980s, I just have a hard time imagining that Hammer was be moving a lot of units, considering what people were interested in, what the biggest grossing horror movies and the things that people really remember from that decade. Because again, this is coming out in the midst of the 80s, arguably one of the greatest decades of horror ever. So
Mhm.
at least in terms of quantity, the sheer massive quantity that was coming out in the 1980s. So I feel like it would be all buried. But this was a very clever way to recontextualize things. Now, Charley and Amy are having that old lover spat where he wants to go all of the way, or at least second base, and she is not interested. And so says no, and he, like a gentleman, completely loses his temper.
I
and
know, right?
and her saying that she was scared, and then he said that he was sorry, and then she fucking is now in her bra, and she says it's so on the nose, but she just kind of looks longingly at him and says, "I'm ready." It's possibly the least sexy way, but at least it's enthusiastic consent. But but
Somewhat
fuck.
enthusiastic. She's covering her boobs and she does not look happy about this whatsoever. She looks like she's doing her duty, which is gross. It's a
Oh,
gross moment.
maybe it is a close your eyes and think of England type thing, eh?
Yes, that's exactly
Speaking
what's going on.
speaking of England, though, we don't know where Jerry might be from, but I could tell you this much: we are going to see the classic scenario. This is Rear Window. This is The Burbs. This is seeing your neighbors carrying something suspicious. A coffin in which, in the dead of night, they are bringing down into the basement. Charlie could give a fuck about sex with a girl anymore. He does not care anymore. And I don't mean like instantly. It is like he has ADHD like you read about. And this is coming from a guy fully diagnosed with it. It's like he doesn't even hear her.
Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
trying to get his attention, and only when out of frustration she leaves does he go after her, and he maintains concentration on Amy for about 2 minutes before he is back looking out the window in while Amy is talking with the Charlie's mother, and doesn't even notice that she leaves.
I think it's great. I think it's adorable. It just shows what kind of focus. He saw something, he needs to say something. That's all that is on his mind. I mean, I would be weirded out and flabbergasted and want to drop everything and address the fact that I saw my neighbors carrying a coffin into their house. Um, Nowadays there's a lot more different people in the world, and maybe the advent of the internet has introduced us to the fact that your neighbors may have a coffin table, like our friend Amy Vosper has, or like I have a coffin just sitting there. If someone saw me carrying that around, maybe they would think something weird. But in the 80s, not everyone owned a coffin. No one had a coffin table that I knew of. So it would be weird. I kind of don't blame them. It's interesting that they have this conversation in front of their mom, his mom, like this. I was ready to bang you, and like, why aren't we banging right now? And you're so interested in what's going on outside. And his mom's just like, "Are you guys having a lover's spat?" Very
she's not just
strange.
she's not just any mom, Lid. She's a cool mom. She is
She's
the
super
type
cool.
of mom that reads Reader's Digest. She's giving them facts and figures about how she thinks that it's a healthy, progressive thing to have arguments before they're married, because did you know that 74% of marriages end in divorce if they don't fight before they're married? So I just view her as the ultimate yuppie mom, just like reading interesting fun facts and going to work at nights. It never really says what she does, but I mean she's a single mother and she has this big beautiful house that they can all live in. So I mean
Yeah.
something important, right? Maybe she's a doctor or something, because she does have to work overnights.
I don't know if they even say what she is, but she
They
could be a
don't.
waitress, could be a doctor, you never know, like,
Never
she's right
know.
up there with the mom in, Dream Warriors, like, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, or even as cool as the mother in Lost Boys, or the mom in Goonies, like, all sorts of cool moms in horror at this time. A lot of cool single moms at that, which, of course, she seems to be. I don't know if it's, uh, the father of Charley is deceased or unknown. He could be unknown because she is a little bit experimental, a little bit hot to trot. She thinks that the neighbor's good looking, just based on hearsay.
Yeah, but with her luck, he might be gay. Now, they do know that there's a new neighbor moving in. Not only did Charlie see something suspicious moving into the home, but this is the talk of the town. They knew that
Mm.
the house's previous owners had sold it, and what they're going to have is basically a house flipper. This person who apparently travels around, buys houses, fixes them up, and resells them. And this is the fact that Charlie is coming from a single parent household is very interesting, because there was a lot going on in the 80s about commenting either through practicality or directly doing so about latchkey kids being
Mhm.
left to their own devices. And I think that this contributes very well to the I like suburban environment, because it gives an excuse for these teens to essentially go investigate a vampire on their own without a lot of parental supervision, and you can have full-blown vampiric battles inside your house. And a kid could imagine, what would I do if a vampire were to break in and my parents were at work and my mom was at work, or something like that. I just think it speaks volumes to what are your kids getting up to while you're away at work, because you can't be home all the time by the time they get home from school. Speaking of school, we are going to have Charlie we're going to have Charlie go to school, where we're going to be introduced to yet another character. This is a very small cast, a very small cast. And it's going to be his friend. Is Ed his friend, or is it just
It's
someone in his orbit that hovers around him?
It's hard to say because this is much like the previous film. People seem to know where one another live, and they seem to know intimate details of each other's lives, yet are not friends or claim to not be friends or become friends and then stop being friends. Like, I don't really know. Uh, it could be just a very small town thing where Ed knows where he is, but I think they are friends or were friends in elementary school, and then when they hit high school, Ed changed. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but it's hard to tell because they don't really specifically say how long they've known one another. They don't make any plans for the future together. And speaking of the high school thing, they are all of an indeterminate, like, I don't know if they're seniors. I'm not really sure. And it is the US high school system, so I'm not really sure how that fits in because I would peg them as taking trigonometry at grade 11, which means they've got to be 17, 16, 17, something like that. My own idea of high school is skewed because I fucking hated every minute of it. And I also left early. I went to college at 17. So I don't like I not left early. I ran out of there with my ass on fire as soon as I found out I could take a mature students test. They don't have a car, or at least they don't mention having a car. I don't think they drive. So
Well,
they
Charlie
might.
drives.
Oh, Charlie does drive.
Yeah, because Jerry destroys his car. He's where he Charlie drives
Oh,
around in
yeah, he
like
does. He has
yeah,
like a hot rod. So he's probably
yeah.
newly 16.
Mm.
He has hot rod, almost James Dean pictures all over his room. So yeah, he's definitely into cars. I forgot that he drove because he only drove up to his house, got out of his car. That's the extent we see of the vehicle. Because I really wanted to slot them in as the next generation after the Kids on Bikes Saving Our Neighborhood, because they do behave a lot like the Cobsons of Kids on Bikes Saving Our Neighborhood. But they don't have a mode of transportation like the kids in It Follows. They spend a lot of time transporting themselves around. There's a lot of other older kids that end up on motorcycles or still on bicycles or in cars or on a subway, even, taking the subway or the buses around town as a mode of transportation. But it just feels like a bit of a ripoff to me when we meet the next generation of Kids on Bikes Saving Our Neighborhood, and they don't have a mode of transportation. They seem to be on foot all the time in this film, and it's just kind of aggravating to me. But they do hang out in school a little bit to have Ed totally steal every fucking scene he's in.
It really is a fascinating thing to watch because we had previously done 976 Evil, and because of the Stephen Jeffries of it all, we wanted to go and tackle the film that got him the role in 976 Evil, essentially. And you can see why, because it's not even so much that he's winning every scene he's in, which he is, but it's almost as if from his cadence to his physical performance to just his entire aura, it's like he's in a completely different movie. And that's kind of a cliche to say, but just comparatively, even the vampires are more muted than Evil Ed is. His nickname is Evil Ed. They don't really ever say why he's nicknamed that, except I suppose it's an othering. It's evil derogatory. And he doesn't much care for it, and he does bite back a little bit when Charlie refers to him as evil. Now, it seems as though that they have a somewhat prickly friendship because of the fact that Evil Ed is just constantly berating him, laughing at him, mocking him as often as he possibly could. But he's also a weirdo little horror kid, and he loves true crime. And he's been listening to the police band because guess what, Lids? There's been some murders in town. And as Amy has returned, who's just still head over heels in love with Charlie, she even, like, every time she's about to leave his presence, she's like, Charlie, will I see you tomorrow? And then he just flatly ignores her. And then she comes back to him in school to try to reconcile because, again, head over heels, but he's distracted by the news because there's been another murder. Evil Ed is going to inform him that, of course, there's been two that he's learned about because of his police band. But here's the interesting thing, Lids. Charlie knows the victim, at least by sight, because she was in his neighborhood looking for his neighbor's house. And she went into the house, and then the next day, she turned up dead. Both bodies, by the way, decapitated.
And Evil Ed delivers this news with such deliciousness. He is fucking unhinged, totally fucking unhinged. And I really am here for it because I might not deliver news like the victims were decapitated with such vigor as he does, but there's a part of me inside that does contain that. He is a very interesting character. As far as his interests, I can see why. I thought he was the coolest fucking guy. I wanted more movies to have them. So then we were introduced to characters somewhat like him in maybe the Frog Brothers in Lost Boys. They are, again, like even the both of them together don't equal one Evil Ed. They are not as unhinged. They are not as insane. They are not as fun. They are not as resourceful. really well, the Frog Brothers are pretty resourceful. I guess Peter Vincent and Evil Ed together are as resourceful, but, like, yeah, he's a really, really intense character. I really like Amy in that I can juxtapose the Amy we know now, this kind of simpering, super cute, short-haired, not that pretty, kinda like no makeup, hair's kind of askew. She does not know what to do with a hair clip at all. It's kinda comical how she has them in her hair for what reason, I don't know, because her hair is, like, rebelling against, any any sort of style to what we see later on in the film from Amy. So it's just a really good juxtaposition, and she's not the sort of girl who, at the time when I watched this and now, even look at and be like, "This is an unattainable beauty standard." We can look at her and be like, "Yeah, she's a very regular girl. I really like her." There's a lot of girls in horror movies that do have a Brooke Shields look about them, and they are just like it's an unattainable, unbelievable beauty standard, especially via the guys that they're hanging out with. Like Evil Ed and Charlie are just pretty regular too. Well, Evil Ed's weird looking, but he's a pretty regular guy. Charlie is the embodiment of like regular guy. I think known 1,000 Charlies in my time.
Yeah, he's got a real Charlie any teen look about him. And I think that Girl Next Door is precisely why the casting was done the way it is. I noticed the hair clips myself, and I think it might have something to do with a wardrobe being determined before you've cast your actress, and then just not being able to get like, well, she has short hair, but yeah, but I envisioned her with the hair clips. So we're just going to keep the hair clips in because
Yeah.
it is kind of distracting when she's just talking or walking away or running away, and you just see this bit of pastel just sticking out of her head, and you think, what is this for? This is not functioning any other way than just to say like it's in her hair, so you win, I suppose.
So bad. So
I w-
bad.
I was going to say the after 1985, uh, Evil Ed's character might have had a little bit of influence on Terry from The Gate, who's a more muted character,
Yeah.
but he is again, it's this meddling Satanist weirdo kid. Satanist, he's a metalhead, and he happens to unleash demons into the world, right? And so like I'm wondering, oh, did people who are the success of Fright Night was a very successful movie, so people loved it, and I'm wondering if we just saw more weirdo kids show up in horror afterwards.
I'd have to say, for sure. And there was also more weirdo kids happening at the time in not horror. You know, you look at Pump Up the Volume, like focused on a weirdo kid, and What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Those sorts of films started becoming popular not long after because of, I don't know, people becoming a little more acceptable, uh, people becoming a little more accepting after things like The Silent Generation, and then you got the Elvis shaking his hips live on TV and all those '50s sorta kids having sort of fringe, subcultures around them, and then subculture becoming the new norm when you flash forward to the grunge era. So, there was, like, this slow incline for alternative kids, and, Evil Ed was really just when they started hitting prime time.
I think you're absolutely right. And also, I am so thrilled that you brought up Pump Up the Volume. I loved that movie when I was a kid.
I still love that movie. I really gotta watch it again, and I think that Evil Ed and Happy Harry Hard-On, uh, are sorta cut of the same cloth.
I often say that one of the contributing factors of me getting into radio was Pump Up the Volume. But I fuck that. We're not talking about Pump Up the Volume. Well, that's for my other Pump Up the Volume fan cast, where I just talked about that movie for 300 episodes. Charlie is going to get a glimpse of some boobs. Do you know he's watching his neighbor's house with snacks and nudie magazines. He had a real girl in his bed. But so like they keep running this thing where like they're trying to play like, oh, he's a real horn dog. No, he's not. He is a he
The poser.
is he's a poser. He's not as horny as you might imply because he is more interested in this neighbor. Now he does get to see some boobies because the neighbor is just tearing his way through the beautiful ladies of this town, and he is going to see fangs. He is going to see claws. But before anything can happen, he's spotted. And that is going to cause this handsome stranger, shirtless, handsome stranger, with his shirtless, beautiful date, to close the blinds. But it's not going to stop Jerry from doing what he wants to do because him and this mysterious other are going to be tossing away a garbage bag. And we're right back into the burbs.
I've never seen The Burbs. I really want to see The Burbs. It seems to be only pay to rent on things, and I don't think that I want to pay to rent it because I remember renting it ages ago when it came out on VHS and not liking it and not paying attention to it and thinking this is dorky. It's probably dorky, sure, but I think that I need to watch it because it comes up in conversation um, about horror film all of the fucking time when you're dealing with your neighbors, um, or dealing with trying to convince other people of something that you are sure of and sounds fucking crazy. So I need to watch The Burbs, but I really did like the beginning of the sort of clash between sexuality and violence in the very subtle way this movie approaches it. And I think that's what made it suitable for younger kids is we have Jer, and his sexy friend that is visiting, and they are getting close to intimacy, but none of it happens on screen. None of the death here happens on screen. There's very little of it, and there's never any real violence coupled with sex, no pun intended. But we have him closing the blinds in this almost sexy way, and almost like the look he's giving his neighbor is, like, not mad that he's being interrupted, so maybe it's like the swinging '70s leftover where he's just sort of like, "Oh, I want you to watch," kinda look. It's very weird. Or, "I wish I could educate you, young man, with your nudie magazines and the real deal, which is happening right here, only 10 feet away." It's very interesting. It's very mm, it's not, explicit, but it's edging on it, which I think is just so appropriate for the age ranges of people interested in this film, the rating of this film, and the general tone of the film. Because say what we will about it morphing in dream logic and the settings and the dialogue pacing versus other pacing, which we'll get into, uh, it does have a cohesive tone. And this is one of those things. They have certain lines that they won't cross that aren't telegraphed to us, but as we're discovering them. Here with this scene is a good example because we get a fairly similar scene later on, which is like a super duper sexy and super duper scary, but not explicit.
I'm glad that you read the scene this way because I read it the exact same way. This is just what I'm getting from the scene, that he doesn't mind that Charley is watching. And in fact, there's he almost has like a playful little hush to it, like, now,
Yeah.
just enjoy the show, or this is not for your eyes. And there's a casual nature to Jerry as a vampire, which I find really hard to articulate. And his character is difficult to pin down in general, because on the one hand, this does seem like a vampire who wants to move about in this suburban environment with a certain degree of
And
anonymity.
anonymity.
He wants to remain anonymous, is what I'm trying to get my mouth around. And at the same time, he does need to feed on a regular basis. And
Mhm.
also, he seems very convinced that if Charley has seen him as a vampire and knows what he is, nobody will believe him regardless. Because Charley is going to immediately leave the house and go into the bushes. Charley, say what you want about him. Fucking balls of steel.
Yeah, really.
He is not concerned with his own safety. And I'm wondering, is this attempting to an attempt to have a commentary on the fact that he just endlessly watches this Fright Night show every night, to the point in which Amy interrupts their makeout session just because Peter Vincent comes on screen? That would be like if you were making out with somebody and you were watching The Last Drive-In and Joe Bob Briggs started talking and everyone's like, stop talking, stop kissing me, Joe Bob Briggs is on. Uh, Maybe somebody has said that at one
Somebody
point.
probably has, yeah.
but you know, so maybe this is just another movie to him in a weird way, because he is snacking, he is looking through binoculars, and he's looking through a window like a television screen. And he now wants a better vantage point. He goes to the bushes. He sees Jerry, who is 100% aware of his presence. Chop it up to vampire super senses, chop it up to his mother loudly calling his name, and Jerry 4 feet away from Charley. Charley springs up and just goes to his mother's house. And well, Jerry and his manservant Billy are literally just standing there. So there is like no attempt. There's no cat and mouse here. It's just, they're just completely aware of each other. He's like, I know you know I'm a vampire. I know you know I'm a vampire. And here we go.
And a murderer, right? Even if he's not a vampire, he's at the very least a murderer. Because this is like missing decapitated women that were last seen by Charley at this guy's house. So, what I don't get is, did like you're saying, he's trying to be anonymous. Has he done this before? We had this conversation with sleepwalkers. Have they just gone town to town renting gorgeous furnished houses and try and pull the wool over everyone's eyes? Or are they done with trying to do that and they don't care? And that's why Charley has noticed the hookers. I guess, I don't know. She didn't look like a hooker to me. She looked like a Vanna White show host or something. But
Mm.
like, he's allowing himself to be seen. He's been alive for apparently hundreds of years. How have they not got better at this by this point? Or is this their first rodeo? Did they always live, like, in the forests of Transylvania, and then this is their first time, like, coming to the big city? I really don't get, because they don't say what the point is of them moving to suburbia and just flaunting the fact that Jerry's a vampire.
He got turned into a vampire in 1984. And so, and then he's just gone on his merry way.
Like, I just
You're,
never change. I'm gonna wear my sweaters and entice the ladies.
there is something about vampire lore in general which makes this all patently absurd on many levels. Because on the one hand, you have vampires who exist in faraway castles and they feed on the population. And it's very common in lore that villagers are aware of this, but they're so impoverished and locked into their areas that they can't really do anything except be a food source for these vampires. And then you have these nomadic vampires that travel around and feed on people. There's also no consistency between lore and movies about how often vampires need to feed. Because
Mhm.
you would think that, okay, we as humans need to eat every day. Is the logic that you need to eat a human every single day? He's also decapitating them, which I'm assuming is to make sure that he's not creating more vampires, a little 30 days of night, just trying to make sure that
Mhm.
you're not increasing the population, although he throws that out the window eventually too. And then, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous because how long could you possibly stay in this suburban home? A month? 31 dead people in the area? Do you not think someone is going to start asking questions about this? And just in your defense of calling the blonde woman a prostitute, she is directly cited as a prostitute in the
She
news
is.
broadcast. So
Yeah.
that's what she is. And so maybe the idea is he is gathering people who will not be missed, unfortunately. It's why they're the targets of serial killers, right? It's like people tend to look the other way. Oh, a dead prostitute, and they don't care. Maybe that is trying to hide things further or to prolong it. But you're right. It is like Sleepwalkers where it's incredibly sloppy. And don't even get me started on the dance club scene where he just seems completely, yeah, I'm a vampire. Whatever. I'm just going to kill two men in front of a room full of 150 people with glowing red eyes and
Yeah.
claws.
Yeah.
But
Exhibiting superhuman strength like nobody cares. Yeah.
it's very interesting. And also very interesting is Jerry's approach to Charlie. Now, Charlie is going
Mm.
to go to the no good Nick, the weirdo, evil Ed, sitting there with his plastic skulls and horror memorabilia in his bedroom. It's a cool room. He's a cool guy. He's a little bit of a spaz. And he
I
he
can
is
relate. I got a plastic skull, bit of a spaz. Sure, okay.
Charlie is going to go to Ed and he's going to talk to him about this vampirism thing because here's the problem. He has tried to get the police involved. The police have gone over there. Nobody believes him. It's useless. He knows that he is dealing with a vampire. So Evil Ed is going to give him some basic tips on how to handle a vampire. Here's what I find very strange. Charlie watches the same Fright Night TV show every single night, and all they do is show vampire movies starring an actor who did nothing but basically play Van Helsing. Does Charlie not really watching it? Is he too busy staring out windows and making out with Amy to ever really watch any of the movies? Because Evil Ed is going to give him the revolutionary knowledge that a vampire can be killed with a stake to the heart, and it could be repelled with a cross, but you have to believe. That's actually I like that little bit of detail that they do. That it can't just be I'm holding a cross. You have to have conviction in the cross, and I like that a lot actually. And also, they can't go anywhere unless they're invited. All of these things, and they have to be invited. The extra caveat of by the person who owns the home. So again, little details that are nice, useful, little details that I really enjoy. That Charlie is looking at him like a wide-eyed 9-year-old, like he's learning all of this for the first time. What's your take on this?
And being somebody who is often asked about vampire taxonomy, vampire traits, vampire habits, and what is, common? What is the lowest common denominators as far as things that are true of all vampires? And there's very few of them, really, but I'm often asked these things. So I could, in a reverse way, come across as an expert on how to dispatch a vampire because we would, by virtue of having watched so much vampire stuff or read so much vampire stuff or collected vampire stuff or read the real accounts of supposed vampirism and how to dispatch them, how those were stopped and cured, um, would be the de facto expert. And so we would be that filter that would work. And I think that that's what Evil Ed is acting as is a filter for all the lore. So Charlie's also watching it with binoculars stuck to his face. How many times for the past year has he been making out with his girlfriend while he's watching it? Maybe he's not paying that close attention. Maybe he's not sure if garlic needs to be flowering garlic a la Camilla, or if it needs to be bulbs around your neck, or any garlic will do. Garlic in your spaghetti sauce, like Lost Boys, or if like Chris pointed out in Lost Boys, if you invite them in, does that render all of that immune? So, yeah, I get why he went to Evil Ed. I know that he's also watched a few vampire stories. It's like zombie movies where people don't seem to know the rules of zombies anymore, when we all really clearly know the rules of zombies, and there's a lot fewer of those than there are vampire rules. And a lot fewer types of zombies than there are types of vampires. So, like, there are a few types of vampires here too, which is really interesting. They don't really get into differences between them though. So there seem to be the rules that Evil Ed sets out are true of these vampires. And I like that a lot, where it's not like coming up with all these crazy, wacky TV rules that aren't true. I like that what Ed has to say is true. Silver Bullet works the same way in the film where they're talking about what you can do to kill a werewolf, and it turns out to be true. I like that quite a lot. They don't have all of the rules here. They don't talk about the OCD nature, throwing rice on the floor, can't cross running water, all those really older ones, like much older ones. They deal with like the contemporary ones that you would have seen and I would have seen on TV. And I think that this is partially fan service too, because these are the rules of vampires that you and I know. And that at 10 years old, I knew extremely well from reading little tiny books like the one I have on my shelves from the library at school, Witches, Vampires, and Werewolves.
I think you're right about that. It is trying to separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of, okay, sunlight, stick to the heart, invite them in. Don't worry about trying to throw rice. Don't worry about the running water. That's the fake rules. It seems like oftentimes vampires in different films, they need to take a beat to determine, at least for us in the audience and this story, what the rules are so everything is squared away. And the extra details that Evil Ed adds about the conviction and the cross and inviting into your home, those details are important because they come into play later. But one of the first rules and the veil of safety that Charlie has is immediately ruined by his very horny mom.
Can you blame her? She's being neighborly, he comes over and she invites him in, and, "Hey, Charlie, there's someone here I want you to meet," as if they haven't met already, and they have this conversation about him coming over whenever he jolly well pleases. I like that. Puts, Charlie on edge, and, of course, now he has nowhere to turn to. He's gone to Evil Ed for advice. That advice has already been sort of not thrown in his face, but in a way by, Dangerous just showing up at the house and being invited in. He has gone to the police, they're no goddamn help. Amy doesn't fucking believe him. His mother would not believe him now because his mother's probably, one step away from becoming a thrall of this vampire. Even though they don't get into the thralls and what he does to people, it's quite evident that he has thralls, much like a little Renfield, he's got that quite obviously from the beginning. So where else is he gonna go but the vampire hunter himself?
This character of Peter Vincent is so fucking fun to watch.
Yeah.
I really, really love this performance. And if I were to say, I'm not going to say one actor is out acting another, but I am saying that having Evil Ed and Peter Vincent, these two characters being portrayed in this movie, when either one or both are on screen, it is pure magic. It is just so entertaining to watch. And I think that this story around a broken down, washed up actor who, because of low ratings, has been thrown out the door, but still will give time to his fans. Charley, who, man, again, going to like the indeterminable age of this character, because he approaches Peter Vincent with a wide-eyed wonderment of a person who believes that Captain Kirk is actually in outer space. Like I just
Yes.
I just
That
find
Billy
this.
Bob lives at that trailer park.
Yes, because he in a previous broadcast, by the way, this is not taped television. This is live. It is like a Svengoolie. Like this is like local television, because he
Mhm.
goes to the local station where Peter Vincent is walking out the door. And yesterday in the previous broadcast, because he had a dangerous encounter with Jerry, by the way, Jerry entered Charley's room and basically said, "Hey man, you saw me be a vampire. No, you didn't though. And so just leave me alone and
Yeah.
go about your day, go about your life. And that's going to be the end of it." It's a good deal. Charley doesn't take it though. And he attempts to press across onto Jerry, and Jerry refers to him as a fool and doesn't kill him outright. I suspect killing a local neighbor boy is an entirely different thing from killing prostitutes. And I think that's why Jerry's not doing it. But here, Charley is going to see a broadcast in which Peter Vincent's like, "I believe in vampires. Vampires are real." And then the next day, he's like, "So vampires are real, right? And I know they're real, and you believe in them too." It's wild to me that Peter Vincent has to essentially break his heart by telling him that he's an actor.
Yeah. Yeah, like didn't figure this out. Especially when they're the beginning of their interaction is like, "I have to talk to you about something very, very important." And the vampire hunter's response is, "What's more important than my autograph?" Like, you can see through the guys from the get-go, he's not acting like a vampire hunter. He is an actor who happens to play a vampire hunter on television, and he makes it astoundingly clear. He also makes it astoundingly clear he wants nothing to do with this crazy person. And where people will say, don't meet your heroes." I feel sorry for those heroes sometimes meeting us, the great unwashed, because I think that every celebrity has had a moment kind of like this, where you're like, I just want to get in my car and get away from this obsessed person. They are obviously a little bit unhinged. Because Charlie comes across as super unhinged because he's screaming about vampires being real, and that he needs Peter Vincent's help as a fearless vampire killer. So, yeah, it's tense. But it is yet another level of disappointment for poor Charlie.
Charley is going to do what all kids in the 1980s do, Lids. He is going to rely on his friends, because all the adults in the room are failing him on every conceivable level. And he is erratic and tense. And Amy and Evil Ed want to help. They are going to enlist Peter Vincent. Now, Amy is aware of how much Peter Vincent means to Charley, who is a fan, enough to like, "Do you want to stop kissing me? Because your hero, Peter Vincent's on TV." So she probably knows that whatever is going on with him, Peter Vincent can probably help. Now, Charley says that he's not interested, or Peter Vincent rejected this notion. But Amy's got a little something up her sleeve in the form of $500.
Exactly.
The turning on the dime of Peter Vincent, because he is now in a position in which his house is going to be foreclosed. He is going to get evicted, and he's got his little note because he can't pay his bills. He is no longer doing Fright Night, a job that I can't imagine pays well. He is not getting
Mhm.
any acting gigs whatsoever, although he lies to Amy and Ed and tries to act like he's so busy he has to go to Hollywood to because he's got a new part in this big movie, and I gotta go. Sorry, guys. And Amy says, I got $500. And he goes, I'll do it. It's like,
Yeah.
forget everything I just said. I will do it for $500.
What I really like about this scene is Evil Ed, even though he's as obsessed with horror and vampires as Charlie seems to be, and he says, "I've seen every single one of your films," he accepts and understands and knows that this is a role he plays, that vampires aren't real. Even though he is, like, the monster kid, and he gave Charlie all of this advice, he knows vampires aren't real. So he's like, "You gotta help knock some sense into my friend and prove that his neighbor's not a vampire so that we can get on with our lives," or whatever. I really like that juxtaposition of the quote, unquote, "outsider," the outcast, evil Ed, isn't really so evil after all.
And has a firmer grasp on reality than
Yeah.
the person who is more of a casual fan. I would describe Charlie as someone who, for a guy who readily watches Fright Night every night, kind of a casual, kind of a nub.
Yeah.
He's not really dyed in the wool like Evil Ed is, and who doesn't pass for a normie amongst his
Yeah.
peers at school, to the point in which they give him a cruel nickname, which Charlie likes to remind him of at any given second. There's no wonder that Ed likes to prank him as often as he does, because Evil Ed is even going to be like, vampires aren't real. What are you talking about? But they have a clever ruse, Lids, a clever little scheme to get us all past this thing. We are going to feed, with Jerry's agreeance, some holy water, wink, and he is going to drink it, and it's going to convince everybody that this is all a delusion. Jerry is on board with this, which I think is actually kind of great, because he's like, you know what? Fine. We'll just gaslight
Yeah.
this kid into thinking that I'm not a vampire, so I can go back to feeding on prostitutes and everyone can leave alone. I don't understand why he thinks this will work, because Charlie A seems very stubborn and headstrong, but
Mhm.
also Jerry has not modulated his behavior even one iota since knowing that people have seen him act like a vampire. So so it's like, yeah, you'll convince Charlie for a day that you're not a vampire until you feed on somebody else with the blinds open.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen, or he's gonna end up killing his mom because he seems very interested in next door, not just for Charlie. Yeah, so he's gonna screw up eventually, and he's gonna have to move because that's what all these TV vampires do. Movie vampires seem to be on the move all of the time because they fuck up, or because their thrall fucks up, or because a victim screws up, or something. So he is going on that route. I had thought this holy water was actually holy water, and holding it by the fire did something to it or something, or there's a rule we don't know, like holy water doesn't work in the vampire's home because it becomes deconsecrated or something. I guess it was just tap water because Peter Vincent saying that jokingly he saw it blessed, and he affects an Irish accent to make fun of the Irish Catholics, that he saw a father bless it himself, which must be a lie because Jerry drinks this. But on their way over there, Peter Vincent had mentioned something about like, "Oh yeah, you remember when I foiled that vampire in that one movie? Still have the prop. I have the cigar case or whatever it is, or cigarette case that has a mirror in it that I used to surreptitiously prove he had no reflection." And as they're all, making friends and apologizing for the inconvenience of making Jerry Dandridge drink some holy water for a second, he glances in the case. I don't know what would have possessed him to do it. I guess just for fun, or maybe there's part of his mind, like anyone, when
Checking
faced
his
with the
makeup.
fantastical. Oh, he could have been checking his makeup because he definitely has a lot of powder in his hair to age up.
Yes.
Not that old, Roddy McDowell, at this time. So he's like checking in the mirror because maybe there is a little bit of a fanciful, like, well, what if, what if this guy's really a vampire? I mean, faced with the evidence that they are faced with right now, even I would be kinda like, "I don't know, man. Maybe he is a vampire. Let's just take a little look-see." And, of course, surprise to no one, there is no reflection because Jer is indeed a vampire. And I like the shift here, and this is just dealing with an excellent actor. Uh, Peter Vincent is suddenly needing to get very far from this house. He wants out. He is done. He's very nervous. Jerry Danders is like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "Oh, absolutely nothing. Just a little bit. Gotta go." And I really like that the acting here, where he is convinced that this is a vampire and needs to get the fuck away from it.
And also that he's in a room full of children that are in danger. Like, I understand that they're teenagers and they're probably older teenagers, but this is a situation in which oh, actually, this is a dangerous thing that's going on right now. I have to get everybody out of the house. And his demeanor completely changes, as you had pointed out. And this is where he gets in his vehicle and bolts.
Not
It's
very
funny.
vampire killer behavior, I don't think.
I know. I like that he wore his costume from the movies too. Like
Yes.
he
He
just
has
got
his
all
whole
dressed
kit
up.
too and everything, like all of the vampire hunter gear.
The wildest thing is that one of the movie props seems to be a functioning gun. But we'll get to that in a minute. But like but I I find that him leaving the teens by themselves is so funny because it's it's almost as it's like this little streak of cowardice that is going to come into play a little bit later on before he kind of realizes who he's meant to be, perhaps this whole time. But it's going to leave Charley and Ed walking Amy home, essentially. Now, Ed wants to cut down this alleyway that looks like it's straight out of Chicago.
Yeah,
It's just, we are talking like steam, garbage cans. It's Crime Alley. It's where Batman's parents get shot. And
yeah.
he's like, yeah, let's just go down this way. And they said, no, let's go to crowded places that are well lit and lots of people around. Amy's reaction to Ed's prank is hysterical to me because Ed is going to pull a little bit of a prank, a little bit of fakey as he cries out in pain when he leaves them, and they're going to rush to his aid. And he is going to pretend as if he got bit. Charley is obviously convinced that this is true because he's very convinced that Jerry, despite everything, is a vampire. And Amy and Ed are basically going to like cackle in his face when it realizes that he's been tricked. The reason why this is funny is because 5 minutes later, Amy's demeanor about pranks, about vampires has completely changed. And she's like mad at Ed, like that. He's a jerk. It's not funny. I'm like, you were literally laughing in your boyfriend's face. Like
She
five
looks
minutes
so
ago.
mad when she's saying it's not funny evil, and that was one of the things that we would quote on the schoolyard often. Um, and it's something I think of all the time when somebody else is getting murdered and their friends think it's a joke. I think of this scene all of the fucking time because, like, spoiler alert, Ed does get bit by a vampire, in short order in the same alley, which he had thought was a useful venue for this prank of I'm gonna bite you and give you a hickey. Funny, funny, funny. But yeah, then it turns into this chase scene, which the music changes, and the music within this film has kind of gone in and out from like really goony, all the lyrics being about like he's gonna get you kind of stuff. Really very weird bespoke music for this film to very fitting music, and this chase scene is one of those. So the music and the demeanor, we go into just this chase scene where it's just Jerry and Ed, and I thought it was extremely like, it's almost like it's out of another film, like out of a noir or something like that, the way that it's lit and the way that all of this takes place, and Ed's sort of demeanor throughout it all as finally being the victim for real, aside from being the victim on the schoolyard or socially most of his life, he's now an animal victim.
This is one of the best sequences in the film. I think that everything from the music to the performances is just nothing short of exquisite. And I do agree that it does seem like something out of a completely different film because even Evil Ed is bringing it down a notch. He is giving a far more muted performance than he was basically throughout the entire film, and certainly um, every moment afterwards, he's going to be at 11. But in this moment where Jerry goes to Evil Ed, and what does he do? He offers him a place, not just, I'm going to kill you and feed on you like I've killed and fed on everybody else. You're going to be turned into a vampire. Why does he do this? Is it yet another way to fuck with Charley, who he believes is trying to ruin his life? Is it another way to make him suffer? Because, or is it another way to add an additional antagonist that perhaps could take the blame for any murders of Charley or anything like that? Or is it because that he has set his sights on Amy, who looks remarkably like somebody from a portrait? And so there's a lot of different factors going on, but when he offers his hand to Ed and Ed takes it with tears in his eyes, and then he covers him in his jacket. This is cinema, man. I was like,
Yeah.
this scene's fucking good. Like, this is a
Mhm.
scene of vampirism that I love. And the entire film is not doing this. It does it two other times, I feel like. But this scene is a standout to me. I love it.
They change everything, from the camera angles to the lighting to the tone to the cadence of dialogue, like, all sorts of stuff changes with this scene, but it's done so seamlessly that it fits still within the general tone of the film, so I really do think it's masterful, and they begin and there's other scenes like this like, earlier in the film where they do, some sort of camera trick, some sort of zooming through the glass or some sort of long shot where they follow somebody with almost a handheld feel to the camera for just a moment, long enough to transition to the new mood. And they do this with a top down scene. And there not enough films use top down. I fucking love it. They use top down on Ed down the alleyway when the alleyway suddenly does become sinister. And then we go from there following Ed. And I just like that visual cue that prepares the audience for something different is going to happen because we have something different presented. We're looking through different eyes now. And it's not necessarily killer point of view, which they also use um, when Jerry turns into a puff of smoke and chases Charlie for a second through the bushes he knows he's in. Those sorts of camera tricks. And I think that they owe a little bit or vice versa is a little bit is owed here with, the Raimi methods of following things in Evil Dead and some of the camera tricks, the sophisticated camera tricks that are learned there. And it all stems from watching all those goddamn horror movies, right? Where they do use sophisticated cinema tactics to tell the story. And you only learn that by watching, so I think that that's part another angle of the fan service here because people who have watched multiple genres of sinister film all of their life definitely recognize those little cues, and we're ready to go down that alley with Ed and get slaughtered, changed, taken in, add another level to this dream that we're witnessing. So I really, really like just the camera angles here, let alone the sound and everything else that changes with it. I'm a little weirded out by some of Jerry's wardrobing, but it's also because it's 85, and I think that, um the same person who does the music probably did, like, NYPD Blue or Hill Street Blues or something like that, and they also had a hand in the soap opera makeup and wardrobe choices. Instead of bat wings or a cape, he has a light gray trench coat.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's like a scarf or it's like a sweater, but there's like this red flourish at the very front of it. It just looks
Mhm.
not good. It's very dated, but this movie came out in 1985, so you do have to give it a pass, but there was something a little less mysterious about it. And I think that it's less effective when you see him in full frame, like toe to the top of the head, and you see the entire fit. It's not really working. And I think that
Why not black?
it's very interesting, but I think that it goes with the fashion senses of the 1980s. This was supposed to be a suburban yuppie style. He's wealthy, perhaps a little eccentric, a little rich, and he wouldn't be wearing dark colors because that was out. That wasn't in vogue. It was you were wearing pastels and lighter earth tones, things of that nature. I think that if he were to be wearing black clothes, it might signal too obvious, because the vampires of Hammer wore black cloaks. We're past that. We don't do that anymore. This is our modern 1985 twist. It just looks bad, but I think maybe in 1985 it didn't. I don't know. I was a literal baby, so I can't I can't say for sure. But I think that in this instance, just everything is working so much. But I would prefer the black cloak. Now, Jerry is in hot pursuit. They know something has gone down, and Amy is in near hysterics. She is first furious at Ed for his prank that she was cackling about earlier, but the second time is a bridge too far. And now they are going to find themselves in a very busy club. The logic here is people. He's certainly not going to do anything, because the entire premise of this so far has been Jerry does not want people to know he's a vampire. But just like Freddy Krueger, you are all my children. Holy fucking shit. Does he just decide that he doesn't care about that anymore after a 5-minute dance sequence with Amy?
It is a very long dance sequence, and looking back to, like, little 10-year-old Lydia, it didn't seem that long. There's a lot of weird time tricks, I think. There's some line delivery that could be more snappy. There's some lines and, ideas that are too snappy now that all seem to fit when I was a kid. Maybe it's just the different styles of storytelling on television and movies from 1985 that were normal. This long and protracted dance sequence is like the long and protracted singing in the nightclub sequence from Nightbreed. It just goes on forever. Stab me in the temple, make it finish. It's terrible. I also thought that these high tech visual tricks here were so avant-garde and so effective, where he's walking around a mirrored nightclub and not showing up in any of the reflections, that she's dancing with this vampire, and you see it in the reflection, and he's not there. It's not done very well. I mean, quite honestly. Uh, it goes on way too long. It's not really done very well. You can tell these very obvious mirror tricks, or that she's dancing with nobody for real. As a kid, though, holy shit. This was like, "Oh my god, he's a real vampire right out in the world, and everyone's right there. Oh my god." It was, yeah, very effective to my 10-year-old brain.
I think that this is an instance in where you can see writer director Tom Holland's what he's interested in. And
Mhm.
I think that the pacing of this film is very strange, and that I find as though we cannot wait to get past the initial premise of this film. My neighbor is a vampire and I need to prove it. I am a teenager with no resources and no adults believe me except for a washed up actor. We need to get past all of that stuff very quickly. And I feel like things are so truncated in certain areas, like to the point in which Jerry is going to pay Charley a visit one day, and then in a scene we don't see, they just tell him, "Don't worry, we're going to come over to your house tomorrow." He's like, "Oh, looks like I don't have to go out tonight because he's coming tomorrow." And then we're there. Like they're just all standing in front of his house, and 24 hours has gone by. I'm not saying that you need to show us an entire day because then the movie's like ridiculously long. But what I am saying is it's so jarring to find your place, grasping in the dark, and then to slow everything down for certain sequences, particularly towards the end of this film. And this seduction of Amy is going to get long, prolonged sequences with very little dialogue, if no any dialogue whatsoever. And seems to be what Tom Holland was the most interested in. He wanted to tell this story about this gradual seduction of Amy by Jerry, and they are going to do that with this dance sequence, which it's very obvious that Amy has gone from hysterics to being intrigued and exposing her neck. And so she is under some kind of hypnosis. She's under some kind of vampiric spell. And this is going to lead into Charley trying to get her away from uh, Jerry. And it's going to result in a fight, like a full-on brawl. One of the bouncers gets his throat slit out. Another bouncer gets lifted up and thrown 100 feet across the room. There's screaming, there's crying, there's chaos and mayhem. Jerry has glowing eyes. We're not doing the secret vampire thing anymore, except we're kind of going to ignore that just happened. It's pretty crowded. There's a lot of lights. It's dark. Maybe people don't really know what they saw, but I don't know.
I think that's what he's hedging on. I mean, I guess I would too. It's like, well, all these people are drunk or on drugs or whatever. They don't know what they saw. All they know is that the bouncer came flying from across the room and landed dead on the floor. That's all they know. Maybe they didn't see the other guy get murked either. So like he's probably just hedging on that. And that he can disappear in a puff of smoke. He can turn into a bat. A fruit bat, I may mention here that Chris Sarandon himself suggested that he not just eat an apple here and there, he eat all kinds of fruits, oranges and peaches, and he's a fruit bat. I don't know why that motivation was allowed, but it helped him, I guess. And maybe it is like, oh, who was it? Donnie Wahlberg in was what movie was that where he's shaving his face as the detective all the time?
Oh, I can't remember the name of it.
Dead Silence, I think. Is that what it is he's in? Where he's shaving his face all of the time, or is it a Saw movie? Oh, it's maybe a Saw film. He's constantly shaving his face because he thought he needed something to do with his hands. And the director was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So he's always shaving with an electric razor he keeps in his pocket, which is, like, gross, but whatever. Same sort of idea. Jerry's constantly eating fruit and wiping his hands off with a napkin that he keeps with him to clean up the fruit juices because he's a fruit bat. Oh my god. Anyway,
It,
this is
I've
also the
never,
big
I was just gonna say, I've never put that together. I have
oh,
never, I obviously I noticed the fruit eating, but I had no idea that was the idea. Is that true?
yeah.
Fruit
That is
bat?
true. That is true. Yeah,
Wow. Wow. That's so good.
because he's a fruit bat. Isn't that he has some fruit bat DNA, is how he put it. He must have some fruit bat DNA. Obviously. I mean, because of all the fruit. He doesn't just subsist on humans alone. Yeah.
You would think he wouldn't have to eat a body every day, what with all the fruit he was pounding, but
The amount of
whatever.
I know, and, like, vampires, usually you see some sort of shift in their appearance that they obviously need to feed. Uh, Jerry is just a gourmand, he's a bit of a foodie, I guess, he's not really hungry, he's like, "I could eat," and just as a person a day, it's a wild pace. I like that, Amy's becoming enthralled because he's crossed oceans of time to find her, of course, and her hair starts to get fluffy. And then you notice she's got the sort of curl to the bang that was very popular at the time in hairdressing circles when you've got the short, curly hair to deal with, that you can really feather it out at the top and feather back the sides. So she starts getting the wings going up at the sides. She doesn't need that stinking hair clip anymore, Wes. Her hair is getting fluffy and sexy, and you can tell it's been brushed for the first time for the entire film. It looks so good. It starts to lighten slightly, perhaps just because of the amount of hair product in it glistening off the lights, or to match the Amy of lore in the oil painting, the girl that Amy looks like. So it's just such a neat transformation. He has not taken any blood from her at this point. He's not changing her. He's just dancing with her, and already she has a little eyeshadow on. Her skin tone has cleared. Like everything about her ages her up 5 sexy years. And I really, really like that scene for that. And it does work. It does really age well, those sorts of scenes in this film. And soon enough, we'll be talking about one of the coolest set pieces that has aged so fucking well. But yeah, where do they go? Amy goes off to Jerry's place.
This sequence is very interesting because, as you say, she has changed in her appearance and demeanor. She is wearing this glamorous white dress. And now this is so interesting because in many ways, we are combining elements of old Hammer horror because of the opulence of the room that they're in, but they're adding a touch of the hunger to it. They're adding a touch of the slowed down 80s sexiness to it. And we have another long sequence between the two of them where you think that they're going to have sex with each other. Now, this was something that Amy was always afraid to do. And like, let's not forget the fact that, I mean, she is canonically a teenager in this sequence, but, and Jerry is, you know, an ancient vampire, or maybe he became a vampire last year. We don't know, but we do know that she is willing to give himself over to her and he wants to change her. Now you think, Lids, I want your take on this. Does he want to change Amy because of the oil painting and that she seems to be the physical reincarnation of a long lost love? Now, we've seen things like this in all kinds of gothic horror before. The reincarnation, all the way going back to like Black Sunday. This reincarnation is commonplace in a trope. But he doesn't seem to want to utilize, he's like, I'm in love with her. He wants to use this as a further way, in my estimation, to punish Charley.
Partially, I think it was just a gross coincidence that his Mina is Amy, and it just happens to be Charlie's girlfriend. I think it's just a cosmic joke that is probably often played on vampires. Every 10 years, they probably encounter one of these. But yeah, he also does need brides, right? Like, what would
He
they think if it
has,
was just him and Billy there?
well, they would make it because of the way that he hangs off of Billy. I mean, there's very little interpretation that I think, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even think that they're going for subtext. It's just text to me.
Mhm.
But it's interesting that Evil Ed gets the full vampire treatment, whereas Billy, we'll figure out what he is in a little bit, but he ain't exactly a vampire, like you said, Renfield style, but kind of even a more of a revenant than anything. But the
He is, yeah,
Evil
like a
Ed
golem
is,
or
yes, a
homunculus
goat,
of some sort. Yeah.
yes, something more, far more magical, and but Evil Ed is going to pay attention to Peter Vincent, who is cowering in his home, like the vampire killer that he is.
I like
But
here that Evil Ed has introduced himself as Evil Ed. He's fully embodied his evil. He isn't like, no, it's Edward at the door. He says it's Evil Ed.
and of course, Peter Vincent, at the very least, wants to help the kids, right? So he pulls him inside, much to his detriment. And Evil Ed is going to very quickly reveal himself to be a vampire. Now, we've not seen, we've seen Jerry kind of partially transform into like a humanoid vampire. We've seen the teeth, we've seen kind of the monstrous face, but Evil Ed looks quite different. His fangs are a little bit more wild, a little bit more out of control. And he is even going to get these blood red shot eyes that we've not seen before, after, in a bit of desperation, the cross that he took from Charley, Peter Vincent, is going to place on Ed's forehead, and it's gonna work very effectively to scar him.
I actually utilized this scarred cross in the forehead shtick as a Halloween costume when I was in my 20s. And because I just loved it. I love the whole idea. Like, you know, how do you know with vampires? Mark them for life. You get that good old burn in the forehead and they won't trick anyone ever again kind of idea. It's such an effective bit. And it is just Ed Ed looks betrayed, he looks angry. Of course, he knows that that would have worked because, like, he didn't think that Peter Vincent had faith or knew that he had to have the cross be effective. It's just such a good scene, really good acting on both sides, and it's crazy to think, like, we have this very seasoned veteran actor um, against a relative newcomer, a basic newcomer in his first real feature role, Stephen Jeffries. Like it's just such a match made in heaven in this scene too. And later on they spar again. I really, really like this, where Ed goes screaming off into the night with a steaming cross burned into his head. It's just so cool. And I guess he has no fruit bat DNA. They're very different look.
A very different look. Again, it's magic to see these guys on screen together. And I wonder why Evil Ed doesn't really make a play for Charley himself. Is it this idea that he is for the master? Is it the idea that Jerry is whatever's going on with Jerry and Amy and Charley, that's their business and Ed is not to be involved? Or is it just that Ed is such a wild card that he's more amused with going after his once hero? Because he even will call Peter Vincent a fake, a fraud, and
Mhm.
and say that, he looked up to him and for nothing.
He also goes after Charlie's mom, apparently, which is, um, I guess that's why he would have been in that house in the first place. Maybe he does have a leftover friendship with Charlie and doesn't want to attack his friend. Maybe that's part of it too.
That could be very much it. But after this whole kerfuffle, Vincent's going to get another visitor in the form of Charley, who needs somebody to help him against Amy because he's tried the police twice. They're like the
Yeah.
second time we don't even get a scene. It's just on a payphone. And so no one's going to help him. His mom's at work. We know this. Or we'll learn this for sure. But she does mention it a little earlier that she's going to start night shift at 3 a.m. And so he goes to Peter Vincent's place, and after Peter determines that he's not really a vampire by making him do the cross test, um, they make a plan for attack. They need to go to Jerry's place, and Peter Vincent is going to be geared up. He's already kind of defeated a vampire before in the form of Ed, so maybe he's got the gumption to do it again. And here's my question to you, Liz. Because as we enter this moment in which it's like, welcome to Fright Night for real, and Jerry sort of very slowly comes in, running his nail along the banister, marring the wood. I don't know. I was like, this is your house, Jerry. I don't know why you're doing that. But Vincent's crosses don't work. What do you think has happened here? Is it Ed calling him a fraud? Is it the fact that Jerry is far more intimidating than Ed was? What do you think it is?
We had a little bit of this conversation that maybe it is the vice versa of if you invite a vampire into your home, some things won't work against them. Maybe when you're on their turf, some things are deconsecrated to a certain extent. Or maybe because he is so powerful, all it took is that little glimmer of Peter Vincent's faith to falter for one little second of like, oh God, I hope this works. That's all you need to think to that is in effect not having faith in something. Ed being a fresh vampire, a fledgling, maybe it worked so much easier against him that you didn't need to have like, you know, a lifelong religious devotion to the cross. You could have like a throwaway faith, kind of like at the moment, ad hoc Christianity for a second, and it worked fine. But with a more powerful vampire, you need to have faith in the cross, period. Where I would fail fucking miserably if that were the fact and I was being chased by a vampire and had nothing but a cross at my disposal. I often wonder, do they have the same rule of the makeshift cross? If you just cross two things, two table legs or whatever, like you see in other films, would that work or would he just bat it away? I think that that's what they're getting at here, is that Peter Vincent had a moment where his faith faltered there, even a little bit, against a very powerful vampire.
It's so fascinating as this confrontation goes on. People get separated. Charley gets locked up with Amy. He wanted Amy, after all. And so he will find her, now a vampire herself. And it seems that between Charley and, between Jerry and Billy, it seems to be that their big plan is to just lock up Charley in the room with Amy and force him to kill her or allow her to just kill him.
I think they figure that she will definitely kill him because she's a fledgling vampire who's probably very hungry. Maybe this is the thinking. I'm not really sure. I do know that she is now wearing mascara and lipstick, and her blusher has gone all the way up them cheekbones. She has longer hair, so she is like fully transformed now. Maybe not into a full-on vampire. Give that a moment and that'll happen, but she has turned into a very sexy woman who seems to be even more 5 years older and very, very, very good looking, even surpassing the beauty of the oil painting. In the oil painting, she still looked kind of like maiden-ish. Here, she's just this like sex beast, which is interesting because her making was very cinematic. It didn't have to do with a whole lot of fangs. We barely saw Jerry's fangs. We didn't see a whole lot of nudity. It did look like they were kind of getting it on, but there was just a little bit of blood running down her back. It was very sexy, very demure. And I really appreciate that. Now there's no demure left in her at all, right? As she's chasing her former lover, I guess. They never had sex, so I don't know if that's a lover thing. But I guess she's open to the idea now.
Peter Vincent is going to attempt to get help because his crosses don't work. And so the next base of operation... All out of ideas. He was banking on it. And it's very interesting because Charley's determination with the crosses is unwavering. His use of the crosses are effective. He does represent a genuine threat. Peter Vincent, not so much. He is going to attempt to find Mrs. Brewster and is going to bring him back to Charley's home. Now, this whole sequence, he is going to again have a second encounter with Ed, who wearing a mop of yarn on his head, pretending to be Mrs. Brewster. You think for a second, oh no, is she dead? No, she's at work. And don't worry, Charley's food is in the oven. And now we're going to have a sequence in which, man, it's super cinematic and also the most vampiric in terms of like a full-on gothic vampire sequence going on in the middle of a suburban home.
The lighting has changed, so again, the house is like so sinister. It is a fitting place for a battle between a vampire killer and a new fledgling vampire who is trying to kill him and protect his master to eliminate the threat of this dyed in the wool, like you read about 1800s vampire killer. That's what he looks like, and that's what he becomes and embodies. And equally, Ed goes from kind of making jokes, like with his dinner's in the oven. It's hilarious. And affecting this sort of like Chop Top Mosley kind of slapstick kind of humor injected into things, going to a dangerous creature who morphs into a wolf. No wonder he doesn't have any fruit bat DNA. He's a wolf vampire, which is a really neat hybrid, I guess. And maybe it has to do with like the inner animal, more so the inner animal than any DNA at all. Because he, as far as I know, wasn't bitten by a wolf or was a wolf. But he's kind of wolfish, I suppose. So maybe that's where that fits. I like the transformation because they could have left it just with that he turns into a wolf, but they take it another step further because he menaces Peter Vincent at the top of the stairs, who has been crashed into the stairs because he's being tossed around by this superhumanly strong wolf vampire that Evil Ed has become. And Peter Vincent arms himself with a broken banister. When the wolf attacks, it ends up piercing the heart of the wolf that is Evil Ed, and he goes tumbling over the banister. And we that could be the end of him. In a lot of lesser films, I think that would have been the end of him, and you would have, like, looked over the edge and seen a naked Stephen. Oh my god.
Jeffries.
My brain. You would have looked over the edge and seen a naked Stephen Jeffries and scene. No. This is that set piece horror movie magic effect sequence that I love. And it's a reverse transformation, which is again something I really love. And this might have been that first reverse transformation I ever really saw because I didn't watch um American Werewolf in London till a little bit after this. That is still hands down one of the greatest transformation sequences back and forth ever that I still love those scenes, but I didn't see that movie until maybe 5 years after watching this. This was my first. I think this and Company of Wolves were 2 films that me and my friends rented often. We would rent these 2 films for sleepovers often. So, it has a lot of, like, it has a lot of wolf transformations between the 2 films. This one is so good. What do you think of the effects here? Do you bel like, I believe that they have held up so goddamn well that it's almost creepy how well they did.
I 100% agree with you. I think that this is not only a set piece in this film that is worthy of the reconstitution scene in Hellraiser, that is worthy of the werewolf transformation sequence in American Werewolf in London. But the thing that's so tragic to me is this film and this sequence is not in the conversation with those transformation sequences. It's like, of all of the things that you hear about, people say that the special effects are cool and the vampire effects are cool, but I want people to talk specifically about this reverse wolf transformation. It is breathtaking. What an achievement in special effects. And not only that, but there is so much pathos in this death sequence. And look at the look on Peter Vincent's face as Ed turns back into the boy. And you see the pain and the anguish. This is not a triumphant defeat of an evil vampire. This is sad. This is
Yeah.
absolutely sad as you see the thing that really killed Ed, this vampiric curse, die and leave behind this boy. And you can see that Peter Vincent feels no pleasure in this. In fact, it's the opposite. It is absolute sorrow for what he has done to this boy. I just think that this is one of the greatest sequences in horror of all time. And after recently rewatching this film, I'm absolutely convinced of that.
I agree there because the acting doesn't let up either. It's not like a lot of like even movies where there's a transformation that is very well acted, like The Howling. There's a lot of times where they're just sort of standing there, letting the transformation and the effects team go to work. That doesn't happen here. We have Steven. Jeffrey's actively trying to pull the banister out of his chest over and over and failing because it's really in there, and him, like, thrashing about and looking to Peter Vincent for help, looking regretful. Like, all of this emotion is happening at the same time. And it's not a quick transformation either. And we get a lot of different tactics of physical effects going on in this scene, from like the reverse melting wax and like typical prosthetics and like air pockets underneath the latex skin and all that. We get all kinds of really cool fluids and glistening things and hairy things, different stages of hair and hairlessness. Like, they do everything. They fucking everything in the kitchen sink, and it lasts maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes. So it's not short. It's a nice long transformation, which is superbly acted by both parties throughout, in a setting that could be mistaken for any mausoleum, even though it is a suburban craftsman home living room. Like, just the use of light and dark, the use of score, like everything is so pitch perfect in this scene. I don't know why it tends to be forgotten. Maybe because it's Fright Night and people forget that it isn't Goonie Charley chasing after his soap opera neighbor, that there is real vampiric horror like you read about or like you used to watch in Hammer horror films, where things are treated with the dignity and the reverence that they ought to be when it comes to real dyed in the wool horror.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. And again, going back to writer director Tom Holland, this is what he cares about. You can
Yeah.
tell he cared about this death sequence of Evil Ed. He cared about the seduction of Amy and the transformation of Amy. These are the things that he stretched like taffy to make sure that we ain't going anywhere. You are watching this sequence. This is what I was waiting to film. I am just thrilled by it. And once it ends, that reticent determination on Peter Vincent as he removes the stake. My knowledge of vampire lore probably shouldn't have done that. But when you remove the stake and he leaves Ed behind in Mrs. Brewster's home, now with new determination, new belief in himself, and understanding that the evil that he has to look what this vampire has done. This isn't sexy soap opera vampire. He just had to kill a teenage boy because of this vampire. This evil fucking ends now. And he heads back over to the house, and it's time to take down Billy. And we get another incredible sequence as this guy who seems to act like he's immune to bullets, but I don't think he is, because they fuck him up. But between Charley and Vincent taking down Billy, what do you want to say? Like, this is crazy. He turns to like goo and sand.
I love this because it's like just proving he must have been a corpse or something at some point that was reanimated for use as a Renfield on behalf of Jerry. And maybe he was an old friend. I don't know. Maybe he was someone he just met that was nice to him and he thought, you know what, I'll keep you around for a little longer. It's neat because he is a fabricated individual, 100%. No wonder he is the apple to Jerry's orange. No wonder he's the salt and pepper shaker, right? Like, no wonder they are the odd couple that get along so cutely, because he is totally a Bruce. He's being made to a certain extent because he gets unmade pretty fantastically. And my favorite is at the end, because everything in his whole body, skin, tissue, muscle, blood, everything just turns into this goo and sand, green goo and sand. And he just turns into a skeleton that's standing there. All of a sudden explodes because, I guess I would too. And the skull goes chittering across the floor. Like, it's so cool. And it's maybe something that again, a younger kid can really get behind. This would be super cool to like a 10-year-old kid. And it was, believe me. The previous death, I think that I was so enthralled with because it was so perfect and so crazy that I almost forget about poor Billy, but his death is neat and his skeleton exploding is the shit.
We are now in the end game, but the interesting thing is once you combine all of these vampiric weaknesses, it doesn't really seem to matter how powerful Jerry is, how old of a vampire he might be. We really don't know, because now that Vincent has found himself believing in the tools of the vampire killer that he has been unknowingly training to be his entire life,
Mhm.
acting turned to practical use. But Charley also is equally in self-belief that they need to take him down and believe in the tools that they're using. And Jerry's kind of on the ropes through this entire fight.
More or less, more or less. I like that Jerry has had all of these clocks because he has to be very time conscious, as most vampires are, about when sun up and sundown is. So he gets distracted throughout all of this, even though he's, um, pulling out all the little vampire stops. He's transformed into a bat. He's gone attacking them through his own home, and he's like done all of these things. He's even bit one of them, like in bat form. uh, I like all of this fight sequence, but I really like when he is caught with his pants down, when he's standing in front of his gorgeous stained glass window and all of his little clocks, even the little cuckoo clock, start going off, chiming that it's 6 o'clock. It's just interesting that sunrise is happening at 6 o'clock because, like, I guess that was part of Billy's job, was to set all these clocks because sunrise is different every day. I don't know if Tom Holland knew that, but it is. It's not 6 o'clock every day. Uh, I don't know what time of year this is supposed to be. It probably wouldn't be rising at 6 o'clock, but whatever. It's adorable that it's happening right at 6 o'clock. And our heroes get to have their haha moment while poor Jerry gets to have his oh no moment, but with vengeance.
Well, he does have a few more tricks left up his sleeve, but it also brings the biggest problem for a vampire during the daytime is that they do need to go to sleep, and they're very adamant about that. So you do kind of have to kill a vampire in their sleep at all times, and sometimes it can seem a little goofy, because I always think about Dracula, not the book, because in the book he never wakes up. They literally just have an entire fight with bandits, like while Dracula's asleep the whole time. But in the movie, he kills Renfield, throws him down a flight of stairs, and then is like, well, I know that there's a bunch of people in my castle who want to kill me, but bedtime. And so he just goes into his coffin and instantly killed. This is kind of the same thing. If he but he has one more trick up his sleeve, Lids, because he has a little helper that's still alive, who is now going to descend into the basement while they search for the coffin, which is locked from the inside. That's his little thing. He's like, I've locked it from the inside while I sleep. Well, Amy the vampire, flowing like almost like a strawberry blonde hair, very long, very wild, in her gorgeous gown, and it almost looks like a completely different actor that's playing her.
They've done something very interesting with that. Her hair grows almost like Claudia in Interview with the Vampire. I don't know why her hair grows. I don't know. It was looking cool previously, just being fluffy and brushed for once. But they've got this, like, yeah, long strawberry blonde hair, a lot more makeup. She looks very vampy, to use the term, um, chasing them through the house. I like that he's early in the film, we see that they've painted a lot of the windows black. So that he has going for him. As soon as he gets away from that stained glass window, he's pretty much safe within his own home until he gets to his coffin, which I really do like that he is like determined to go to his coffin. He's also half transformed a lot of this time because he's, lost a little power. It's after sun up. He's, maybe not as strong as he typically was. He probably used a lot of energy turning into a bat and back and forth. So he's sort of half bat like through a lot of this, and I like the makeup effects quite a lot. in this, even though he's not my favorite vampire as far as like the way that he transforms. I think Evil Ed looked way cooler as a vampire when he's half transformed as well. But yeah, it comes down to Charley and Amy duking it out, which is, I guess, is the way that it's sort of what Jerry wanted all along. He wants Amy to finish Charley off for him and maybe hopes this is his last ditch effort where she'll be able to do that.
She has partially transformed herself. That mouth that she is spouting is very iconic in the world of horror. You see, that's the face that's on the poster art. That's what usually adorns t-shirts. Amy, as this bride, essentially, has become just a fixture of horror iconography. And she doesn't have a lot of time in the movie left like this, because Vincent is going to open that casket by any means necessary. And you think that he is going to get an easy kill of old Jerry, who's soundly asleep. But it's a little bit like Salem's Lot, because once that stake gets driven in, he doesn't have the chance to finish it off. No decapitation, no immolation, nothing like that. And you see what happens when an older, more powerful vampire does get staked through the heart. He manages to pull it off. And they are running out of options, but not before they run out of windows, because they're just smashing every window. In this basement, it seems like every wall is a window. And in proper sequence, when Jerry is essentially trying to evade, like, he's completely on the ropes. Like, at no point do I think that Jerry at this juncture is really a serious threat. He's more just like too stubborn to die. But he's just getting increasingly stuck between beams of light that he can't escape from, until the final beam of light throws him against a wall.
Which is a blow inflicted by the famous vampire killer himself, Peter Vincent, who has a coup de grace. And it's a beautiful scene where it's not just a beam of light that disintegrates a vampire. It drives him back several feet, and it's so very powerful. And it's a really, really iconic vampire death. The sort of vampire death that most people writing and creating about vampires strive for, this sort of vampire death. And it actually does work, and it does what they say in the books: you kill the master vampire and the other vampires return. If only they had done this in time to save Ed, but they've done it in time to save Amy, who transforms quite instantly back to simpering, Charley fixated Amy that we all know and love, with way cooler hair and makeup this time.
Yeah, but her hair is shorter now, though. So she just,
it's still brushed and fluffy. She still looks a little bit crazed. Yeah, she reminds me quite a lot. If you pull up an old Billy Martin book, you pull up old Poppy Z. Bright, the back of like Lost Souls, it's like a spitting image when Poppy Z. Bright was pole dancing. That was like a very good look.
We are now getting out of here, we think. We are back in that bedroom. I'm sure Mom is in the living room reading Reader's Digest, looking up more stats about young couples and the futures that they might hold. We have Peter Vincent back on the air. No explanation about he's like, oh, I'm back on the air. Dude, you got fired because your ratings were low. Why did you just come back and like, I've killed real vampires now?
I think so.
He does a little wink to Charley because he doesn't want to talk about vampires anymore. So he makes everybody watch the 1970s classic Mars Wants Flesh. And then all of a sudden, it's not exactly happily ever after, or is it? Because Charley is going to glance into the now empty house for sale. And he's going to briefly see some glowing eyes. And then we're going to hear the laughter of Evil Ed, who declares that you're so cool, Brewster.
I think it's so neat. And that has become a catchphrase across many horror fandoms. The "You're so cool, Brewster." I think you said that to me yesterday. And
I did. I did.
I've used it lots, lots. Even if people don't get it, I don't even care. Just, "Oh, you're so cool, Brewster." "Oh, Brewster, you're so cool." People say that, and it's sometimes they may not even know where it's from. I think it's a fitting end to Fright Night. I don't recall anything about Fright Night 2. I did watch it way back in the day. I remember being disappointed because how can you follow this, right? It's amazing. So the only thing you can follow this with is a fully different movie, something like Lost Boys. That's the next generation of this. So yeah, I have not watched most. I think I've watched part of the remake. I've not watched any other Fright Night because nothing really compares to this.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, "You're So Cool, Brewster" was actually the name of the full-length documentary about the making of this film that they had done back in the day when they were making a lot of longer documentaries about the making of horror movies that seemed to got kicked off after Never Sleep Again. And there was just a trend, like a lot of these horror movies got one. I've never seen Fright Night 2. I know that the characters of Charley and Peter Vincent make a return, and it takes place when Charley is in college. But other than that, I know very little about the movie. It was out of print for a very long time, but Synapse this year has picked up the rights. They've finally been cleared. And so those very expensive artisan DVDs that everyone has on eBay are about to be worthless, which is my favorite thing in the world, because I always tell people, be patient. Do not spend hundreds of dollars on a movie. Do not do it. Be patient. And this is a good example of being patient. And so you can have yours for a very inexpensive price and a brand new cool version with probably some cool arts and some extra bonus features. But I'm really glad that we were able to do this film. It was a long time coming, and it's just great. It's great to get another true classic under our belts for the show. So what do we got next for him?
Coming up next, via popular demand, not really, through Wes's suggestion, we are going to follow this up with fucking Lost Boys. So yeah, another film that I can't believe we've never done. I am very excited to talk about Lost Boys. Holy fucking shit.
Yes, I'm excited too. Again, it's another biggie, and I think that in terms of the interpretation of vampires in the modern era of the 1980s, you absolutely have to discuss Lost Boys. It is practically mandatory about treating vampires as the sinister yous your children could be being corrupted by while you're being an 80s yuppie at work.
I want to see if in the Frog Brothers comic book shop that they hang out in, if there is a copy of the Fright Night comic in there, because they do, there's lots of stuff to look at in there. I'd have to like slow it down and take a good look. But Lost Boys and Fright Night both made their way in comic form, and they're both fun, super, super fun. So yeah, I really like what Lost Boys did for disenfranchised youth and soundtracks. The soundtrack for Lost Boys is fucking great. That's one thing that I wish there had been more popular songs in Fright Night. That might have elevated it to like beyond a cult film. It would have been somewhere where Lost Boys is, where everybody knows Lost Boys. Lost Boys, The Crow, those are things that definitely have superseded any sort of cult status to be like commercially successful and just like, I don't know, historically significant films. I think Fright Night just needed a little bit of extra secret sauce to get to that level, the level that Lost Boys definitely lives in.
Yeah, it's hard to compare because whereas Fright Night is this incredible vampire story, Lost Boys is a message movie to every alternative weird kid growing up in the late 80s and early 1990s. And still, this Lost Boys acts as a clarion call to anybody that even has the slightest bit of alternative in their DNA.
I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to revisiting the music because, boy, that was an era.
And on that note, I'm Wes Knipe.
And I'm Typical Lydia.
And you've been listening to Dead Air. If you like this show, you can find more episodes and other content on splatterpictures.net, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. We also upload all episodes to YouTube now, if you'd prefer to listen that way. You can find us across social media like Instagram, X, and TikTok, and the show is edited by Lydia Peever and hosted by Lydia Peever and me, Wes Knight. We'll see you next time.